You're listening to Weekdays on BYU-Idaho Radio. I'm Natalia Dyer. I spoke with Thomas Heuser, who's the Idaho Falls Symphony conductor, and he's getting ready to pass the baton. All right, well, you've been with Idaho Falls Symphony for about 15 years. What motivated you to apply for conducting in this position in the first place? Because you're not actually from the area.
That's right. Yeah, it was advertised nationally, and I was living in Ohio at the time, going to school in Cincinnati. And it was a wonderful job posting because it checked all the boxes for me. It was a regional professional orchestra in a part of the world that really values the out of doors and has a wonderful community surrounding it. So I put my name in the hat with more than 100 other conductors, and after a years-long process, it turned out that I was offered the position. So I was looking for an opportunity to be the music director of an organization that had a youth orchestra program and diverse programming opportunities, and so when they advertised, it was one that really stood out to me, and it was a perfect fit for me.
Yeah, wonderful. So your home is in Durango currently, is that correct?
That's right.
Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so what does traveling look like for you? How often are you in the Idaho Falls area?
Yeah, we have a concert about once every month from October through April. So these days I'm here for about 1 week a month throughout the year. And earlier on in my tenure, we were slightly more extended schedule, so it was 2.5 weeks at a time. And that was before my wife and I had any children, and it was a little easier on my schedule to be traveling that much. But yeah, before we lived in Durango, we lived in the San Francisco Bay Area and Oakland, California, so I've been traveling here for all 15 seasons that I've been music director.
Wow, that's a lot. So Is that part of the reason why you're stepping down from your role, is the travel, and you just want to be more with family and then progress in your career, is that correct?
That's part of it, yeah, absolutely. I think, just that personal, that family balance is part of it. Being away less would be desirable, but you never know where the job takes you in this field. You've really got to be flexible and pursuing opportunities all over the country and the world, frankly. So I do hope to stay, traveling and busy, but yeah, this, in terms of my personal growth, there is something to be said for having the experience of really developing an orchestra and gaining that foothold in the community and setting them up for their continued success. And I feel like that's what we're doing here. It's just been so much success, so much growth, and now to be able to pursue the next chapter for me, I hope to bring those same energies to another community and to pursue, orchestras at a slightly higher budget range, for example, and just continue my own personal journey with, knowing that the impact that I've had here will be extremely lasting, and all of the continuing relationships that we plan to have are cemented and feel really, really special. So
that's wonderful. Yeah. So you've been named the first ever conductor laureate. So you've received honors and then an endowment fund in your name. Just tell us what that means.
Sure, it's an honor to be named the conductor laureate of the Idaho Falls Symphony, the first in their history. That means that we have this opportunity to continue the relationship forward where, I'll either be back for concerts or functions, fundraising events and the like, and get to see my friends. There's just so many people in the community that are so near and dear to me, the musicians, the patrons, the audiences. So to be able to keep those relationships going is very meaningful. But I'll also be able to be sort of an institutional historian, I guess, providing some context to the next music director about where we've been and where we're going, and just sort of be the bridge in that time of transition. And the endowment fund is extremely special. This was set up by our board of directors to get some money put into a permanent fund that could help support the artistic vision of the organization. We do have a number of endowments that are related to education and the like, but this will be one that's specifically devoted to the musical product, the musicians, the guest artists and conductors. And so with that in mind, then we get this opportunity to look at the future, have something that's really lasting, and be able to have this continuous vision for what the arts here can look like. And everyone's been incredibly generous, and to have it named after me is very, very special.
Wonderful. Yeah. So as far as symphonies go in this world, are they ranked throughout the United States? Is it ranked by, I don't want to say like quality or like professionalism, but how exactly does that work as far as market size?
Exactly, yeah, it is mainly a financial equation. So there are, through the League of American Orchestras, there are tiers, and the top tiers are the ones with budgets in excess of $20 million annually, et cetera. Enormous, organizations with full-time musicians who are on salary themselves. And so those are the largest functioning groups. And then it goes all the way down to the kind of community orchestra tier. You know, there's orchestras that have very, very small budgets, but they are still part of that tiered system. So we are at like a tier 7 or so of the larger national structure of orchestras. And, you know, as you get closer to tier 2, tier 1, it's an incredibly competitive field. These are some of the greatest artists in the world. And, you know, they are where some of the most adventurous programming can happen and things like that. So we try to emulate that and have the same kind of professionalism towards our musicians, compensate them as best as we can, realizing that our budget is much smaller than that, and we're working in a small community.
As far as the qualifications or the qualities that the Idaho Falls Symphony is looking for in another conductor, what does that look like? Yeah,
so it's a big process, and they're in the midst of that now. They've been doing it over the course of this entire season. They've been taking applications and vetting those different conductors for their educational background, their experience with other orchestras. You know, have they had any experience with competitions or master classes on the national scale, international scale? So everybody brings something different, and you know, it's a really fascinating process to get 100+ names in a hat and start to look at, you know, what is possible with that. So they're in the midst of that now. It's a wonderful process. I think the symphony is looking for someone who can lead excellent concerts, but also connect with the community, be an ambassador for music education and just arts in Idaho Falls in general. And they've got some really fantastic names lined up that are going to be announced really soon.
Very cool. Yeah. So why do you think that you have been such a great fit for the last 15 years?
It's a great question. You know, I've been thinking about that a lot recently. It's very serendipitous. You know, you never really know what kind of chemistry you're going to have with a certain community. But when I came here and auditioned, I connected with the people right away, from the patrons to the musicians. I've always been a huge advocate for music education, and that's going very strong in Idaho Falls. So all of those things kind of combined around just the timing of when I was here to mean that we just had a great run. You know, all the concerts, it's just been this sort of upward trajectory. So many wonderful performances I can't even count. More than 100 concerts together over the years. It's an amazing repertoire list that we've established. So all of these things I'm just so pleased with all of that. But it's hard to know what makes you really connect with an orchestra. And now we just have such a sympathetic relationship. It's so easy to make music happen. We just are able to bring this stuff to life so quickly and with such flair. So we've got a great thing, and I'll miss it dearly, but I know that both for me and the orchestra, we're all moving forward in such positive ways that I think there's great things on the horizon for all of us.
So what's been your most memorable concert?
You know, with more than 100 concerts, somebody asked me this the other day, and it's kind of a stump you question, but there's a couple that stand out. One that I mentioned the other day was Beethoven's Ninth got canceled during the pandemic, and we decided to finally bring it back a couple of years later, and that was so meaningful to finally get that piece of music to happen. It's so uplifting, and the choir and orchestra coming together, it's a powerful experience. So that was really memorable. We've had a couple of times a group called Cirque de la Symphonie. It's like a Cirque acrobat troupe, and they come in with sort of trapeze acts, and they go above the orchestra. There's jugglers and magicians inside, and it's just that's a really special concert experience. And the orchestra gets to really play. Yeah, and the orchestra gets to really play these wonderful pieces of music to complement that. So that's always a really brilliant spectacle. We've had great guest artists like Bela Fleck, Mark O'Connor, you know, all of these amazing artists who have really helped us raise the level of the symphony here. So it's so hard to pick just one, but I have countless favorites, truly.
Absolutely. Yeah. So how do you feel ending with your final concert on the song that you auditioned with, Brahms Symphony No. 1 in C minor?
It's such a great bookend for me. I mean, just to see, I don't think I could remember the rehearsal process well enough to know like how far we've come, but it is true that we rehearsed at that time for a couple of weeks during my audition. That was the setup of the orchestra at the time. It was just they rehearsed more regularly, and now we're very condensed into this more sort of professional setup, if you will. So I know these guys really, really well now, and I know that they're chomping at the bit to play this piece. And I remember when I brought it here the first time, it's like a big epic novel, you know, and it's really complicated, and there's a ton of different moods and styles, and they did it, you know, and I was so pleased that we were able to execute on this piece that I love so dearly. And now to do it again, it's just so fun to revisit a piece. You find something new every time. It sort of feels like you're always starting over, but I know that we'll just get right back into those details like we always do and pull off something extraordinary. It is a piece of music that has a humongous emotional impact on the musicians. And so for me personally, it's, again, that sort of bookending connection, but also I'm just excited to play one of my favorite pieces of music.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you feel like there's a distinct difference between conducting the San Juan Symphony and Idaho Falls?
They're very similar, actually. They're both made up of traveling regional musicians as well as local musicians who kind of make up the complement of the group. It's interesting to me that in Durango area there are fewer local musicians than we have here. So local, is within 50 miles or so, and there's quite a large contingent from the Rexburg area who comes to be part of the Idaho Falls Symphony. And so we think of ourselves as a traveling orchestra, but in the Four Corners area, it's very remote, more remote here than here. And so they're coming in from hours and hours away, some from Albuquerque, some from Texas. The Front Range in Denver is a 7-hour drive. So they come in for the weekend and we put them up in homestays or hotels, and they have more of like a overnight experience. Whereas everyone here, I can tell you from working at home, you have to also raise the kids, you've got to go to work in the daytime. You're combining this with your regular life. And the traveling orchestra in Durango, that's a little different because everybody goes there and kind of camps out and just focuses on the orchestra for those 3 or 4 days that we're together. So that's a little bit different, but otherwise in terms of the energy, the enthusiasm, it's a comparable experience. And so I'm glad that I still have that as my primary orchestra.
Do you have a final message for the members of your symphony and for the community here in Idaho Falls?
Well, I wish I could adequately thank everyone for the love and support. It's been such an emotional journey just to be at the helm of something like this and to have audiences and musicians, young and old, look up to you and to try to bring out that piece of inspiration that music can provide. And the fact that they've had that in me and I've been able to share that passion with them is meaningful in a way that I'll just never forget. And I feel like this orchestra really raised me as a musician and a music director to be ready for whatever comes next, and I'm indebted to them. I'm grateful and thank them for everything they've been able to do for me, and I hope that the feeling is mutual.
Would you like to just say when your last concert is and what time it's at and where people can find tickets?
Sure, yeah. So the season finale for this season is coming up on Saturday, April 25th at 7:30 p.m. at the Frontier Center in Idaho Falls, and tickets are available at ifsymphony.org.